So we had our first live guest on the last episode, and this episode I am really excited to do our very first recorded via the internet, the World Wide Web. So when we got ready to create the Global Company Culture Association, I'm always fascinated, interested, what's going on around the world, what are people doing in different places, and who are the gurus out there? Who are the people that are really carrying the torch, raising the flag, that are out there making a noise in the area of company culture. And I came across this guy named Dave Clare, the great Dave Clare from Australia. And I tell you, I watched some of his podcast episodes, other stuff, and I felt like, man, we are so absolutely in sync and in tune with each other. And it was not because we were comparing notes, but it's because so much of what's going on in this space has a consistent look and feel to it. So I'm really excited about having fellow keynote speaker, fellow author, Dave Clare, joining us from Australia. How you doing, Dave?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I thought I'd be upside down being from Australia. This is great to see myself the right way up.
We can probably work it out where you're upside down, but yeah, I guess with you being on the other end of the continent here, so other end of the continent, the equator. So
it's early in the morning. I understand.
You know how it is in America. It's just one big continent for us. Yeah. It's just us. No,
yeah.
So
we're just this little island south of America.
Yeah, that's right. Just a little island, which we were actually talking, Australia, I knew as a huge country, but it's about the same size as the continental United States, or, roughly.
It is, as a matter of fact, yes.
Yeah, so
whoever drew the maps, why did they make it look so tiny?
That's
not fair.
That's a whole other subject.
Really, if you take the piece that they drew about Australia and put it next to America, to measure up, it's the same size as
bias, error.
Somebody.
So Dave,
it was probably drawn by an American.
Yeah, it was clearly drawn by an American. So Dave, we're really excited about having you on the show. Tell us just a little bit about your work, what you're doing in the culture and specifically the leadership space. That's a lot of your focus. How'd you get started? Why are you doing it? And what are you finding having an impact out there?
Yeah, wow, that's a bunch of big loaded questions. All right, so be prepared for this. So for me, why did I get in this space? Well, actually, I used to do a lot of this work in Canada, as a matter of fact. And so I'm Canadian born, and I've been here in Australia now for 10 years for the second time in my life. But I used to do a lot of work in this space back in Canada. And what I found was the moment that I could help a leader really identify with the real purpose as to why they started their business, beyond making money, and get them connected to that, was a big changing point for that business person in their organization. But then their ability then to connect their team to that created this tremendous sense of meaning to the work that people were doing. And so what I realized, and I came up with a bit of a tagline at the time, was that if you become the prophet of your purpose, that's with the P-R-O-P-H-E-T, of your purpose, you'll profit from your purpose. So, it's really about getting people to be more purpose-driven in the first place. And that really extends to why I do the work that I do is, if you look at, and you guys will be well aware of this, the global statistics on disengagement in the workplace is like astronomical. 70% or more people are disengaged in the work that they're doing. 142 countries, 900 million employees around the world are actively disengaged in the work that they're doing. That's terrible. Like that's so bad. When you think about that, what that rolls onto in terms of societal pressures, anxiety, depression, even workplace harassment, bullying, stress, all these things are, correlated, if you like. So imagine if we could actually just shift people's perception of the work that they were doing, or get them a little bit, just tie a little string to give it a little deeper sense of meaning to the work that they're doing. Like, we could actually shift the consciousness of a planet. If you think those 900 million people actually went home feeling just a little bit better about themselves. And so for me, that was just this massive awakening, if you like, as to how important culture is in an organization. And for me, purpose, I always start with purpose, because purpose to me is the seed of culture. And so the work that I do today with leaders is to productively transform their lives, their businesses, and the lives of people that they serve. And I have a massive goal to create and inspire 90 million purpose-driven leaders around the world.
Okay, so and I want to talk about that, but to get to your point, I throw out the numbers all the time, and I heard you use a word on another show that I use all the time, which is this is a crisis of epic proportions. I mean, this is a worldwide crisis. This is not a wouldn't it be nice if. Because as you pointed out, and I often say that, it filters over. So the way people are going home, but if 85% of the people hate their job, what if 85% of the people around the globe loved their job? We'd live in a completely different world. But it raises the question, particularly when we talk about leaders, is it just bad leadership? Is it bad leaders? Is it bad employees? I'd be curious to hear your thought, because many times when I talk to people, they say, well, the culture, it starts with leadership. And I kind of hem-haw around because it does, but I think it's a lot more simple than that. And at the same point, a lot more complex. What's your take on why we're in this crisis in the first place?
Right. So, I absolutely. Like, I believe that leadership is in crisis mode all around the world, that leadership's broken. Once again, statistically, we're spending $50 billion, that's like $50 billion to make leadership better all around the globe. And actually, statistically, in the United States, they spend $15 billion of that $50 billion on leadership development programs, courses, university study, all this sort of combined in. That's the average number. Whether that's an accurate statistic, it's still a big number. So if we're spending all that money to make leadership better, but the disengagement rates are going up, well, that's a bad investment. So something's not working. Now, is it it's not, is it the content? I don't know. Is it the delivery? I don't know. I just think we're certainly complicating things. But most of what we call leadership today is just modern management practices. I believe that we've gotten away from what leadership really is about, which is about people. And, so from that, if we can actually get leaders understanding that leadership being the art and management being the science, we've been spending so much time on the science of business, not the art of leadership. And, so there's a big shift that's required there. And we complicate leadership in terms of what leadership really is. And, for me, I have a definition that I work with people on, and that is leadership's all about helping other people become the best version of themselves so they can do their life's best work while they're in your care and beyond. And when you reverse engineer that statement that says, I care about you as a human being first and employee second, right? And if we did that, and nowhere in there to say that
shift, right?
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, that alone is a huge shift. When we stop talking about people as head count and assets and all of this, and start going, I love when a pilot says we've got 250 souls on board, right? That means that they get it. They get what's on their plane, who's on their plane. Big difference for a leader to recognize that.
Absolutely. These are human beings with goals, dreams, desires, passions. They're and people say, the employees are the greatest assets of our business. And I get the context of that, but show me on your balance sheet where your employees are listed. They're not there on your, if they're the greatest asset, they should show up on your balance sheet as, here's asset greatest, our employees. It doesn't, these are people. So we need to get back to the sense of helping them do their life's best work. And to do that, we really need to actually care about them and as human beings in that sense. And
now, Dave,
their position or title. So let's make sure we're very clear on that.
So, Dave, I do believe that if engagement showed up on the balance sheet, most CEOs would stop down their company because it's so ridiculously low. It's estimated cost worldwide $7 trillion in lost productivity. And, I know leaders have to be wringing their hands out there, but it does feel a lot of the time like it's business as usual, Hey, we're rocking along, we're making some money, things are going well. I don't find the urgency in a lot of leaders of trying to really turn this ship around.
It's a hole in the boat that nobody wants to address. Really, that's what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah, the boat is sinking.
Yeah, so here's we'll call it one of my Clarisms, that a bucket with a small hole in the bottom of it empties just as much as one that's deliberately kicked over. It just takes longer.
Wow. Yeah. Well said.
Well said.
Yeah. So, the hole in the boat, it's leaking out and people don't know, you can be bleeding from the inside and not realize it. Then all of a sudden you just die. And there's a lot of businesses that are growing, but they're growing into irrelevance, and the disengagement of their people and all that just only adds into the factor of that. Or they need to be able to evolve into relevance to stay relevant in the hearts and minds of the people they choose to serve, which includes the employees or their team members.
Every company right before their decline had their best year ever, right?
Yeah.
So
Isn't that the S curve?
yeah, that's the S curve. But so, Dave, I really think the problem is much bigger than just leaders and employees. And, I don't even like the term employees anymore. I call it team members.
No.
But I think it's the paradigm we have of what work is. And as I say, years ago, we reduced the agreement down to one thing, which is you come to work, you do what I tell you, and I pay you some money for it. And we're finding out that is not engaging to people. I mean, surprisingly, right? Hey, I tell you what, we're going to be in a relationship, and every time you're friendly and talk to me, I'm going to give you some money for it. I think there's a whole profession geared around that out there, actually. But there's no engagement when the only thing is just a financial exchange. And work has so much more to offer people. I mean, it's where we're spending a big chunk of our lives.
I mean, it's why people join the Peace Corps or the UN. And they're not going to get paid as much as they might in an office building, but they're doing even harder work, longer hours, but it's passionate.
Meaningful.
It's meaningful. They feel like they're making a difference in the world. You know what I mean? And that's the point. We all want meaning in our life.
By the way, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Dave said you look like Renee Zellweger.
Oh.
So he's before the show in our 30 minutes of prep. So I think the task at hand, I mean, it's much bigger in many ways, but it's also pretty simple. If we get back to the sense that work is about people, it's not about products, it's not about profits. If you get the people part right, the products and the profits and all of that, in my experience, really do show up.
It's so fundamentally simple. Let's say ideas are easy, execution is hard. Although I like to bust a myth that execution is hard, it doesn't need to be. But it is simple, and and this is certainly, I guess, the premise of my book was built on this, that people want three things, and if you do those three things in your organization from a cultural point of view, you'll have an amazing organization with a fully engaged workforce, fully empowered workforce, and a fully inspired workforce. And imagine what you could accomplish if you had a fully engaged, fully empowered, and fully inspired workforce.
Absolutely.
How amazing would that be? So there's only three things that people want. So all you need to do is build an organizational cultural framework that delivers those three things, and let's get on with it.
And there are companies that have figured it out. I mean, you've got companies that are crushing it in the marketplace, great cultures. They're attracting and retaining top talent. Everything that the C-suite seems to be, salivating over getting. Companies that get it right have those things as byproducts. People want to go to work there.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. You see, there's one of the large consulting firms here down in Australia, Ernst & Young, EY, they produce a lot of statistics on purpose-driven organizations. And statistically here in Australia, so I'm not sure in the US what it would be like, but they found that purpose-driven companies, in terms of the strong culture, their employees are 1.4 times more productive than employees who are just in a purely profit-driven organization. Wow. So if I said to you, you could have a 40% increase in your productivity at no extra cost, would you be interested? Bugger 40%. What if I just could give you 20% increase in the productivity of your team without any extra cost to your organization overall? Would you be interested?
Well, I mean, you'd be crazy not to, and I think the numbers can even get much, much bigger than that, right?
Oh, of course, again, I'm going to say sometimes about 40%. Well, okay, what if it was just 20%? That didn't, you didn't have to pay extra for it. And this culture stuff, it doesn't cost. It takes time and energy and the willingness of the leadership and the leadership structure of any organization to want to embrace it. But the statistical numbers, as you would know, how many more companies do we have to show that are succeeding because they have a strong, awesome culture that people love going there, that are meaning, and that company is still being extremely poor.
So let's go back to what you were saying about your mission. What's the number? It was a big number. How many leaders?
90 million.
90 million.
90 million.
So tell
Yep.
us how you intend to do that and how you are doing that.
One at a time.
Love it. That's going to be a long time.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be around for a long time, so that's good. So here, when you think about it, the number itself, 90 million, came from, if there's 900 million disengaged workers in the workforce today, if you look at an average of one leader to every 10 team members,
right?
There'd be about 90 million purpose-driven leaders then that need or that should become purpose-driven leaders, because if they were, then we would have no more disengaged workers. And that number is only going to grow anyway with more people entering the workforce. So that's where I pulled where I pulled the 90 million from. One-to-one, love to work. Remember, please understand, Daren, that the goal is to create and inspire. So, much like yourself and myself, we can go on stage and we can do amazing keynote, inspire a bunch of people to go out and become purpose-driven and create a culture and all that. But unless the boots on the ground actually do something about it, it's kind of like fireworks. And
right.
So for me, it's about the create and inspire. So we need to actually have this conscious shift, because how I think determines how I act. So if my thinking shifts, my behavior shifts, and I'll start doing something in this space. So which is why, for me, how do I go about do that? Well, I can do one-to-one, I can do one-to-many, or how do I do one-to-exponential in terms of at least getting the information out there, which is part of the reason why I decided to write the book. But for me, it's going to be just going out there myself. I'm building an organization behind me. It's partnering with people like yourselves in the Global Company Culture Association. I know I can't do 90 million on my own. Nowhere in there that says that, I'm going to do it all by myself. It just says I would like to create and inspire 90 million purpose-driven leaders. And if that's in partnerships, collaborations, you name it, there's plenty of work that needs to be done, and we need lots of culture warriors, if you like, to go out there and help make these things happen.
Yeah,
and I can't do it by myself.
So Dave, speaking of the association, and we'll have a conversation offline about this as well, but the whole reason we launched that was because there's Dave Clare in Australia. There's, Daren Martin here in the U.S. There are,
Boris Gomes in India.
We've got, Boris Gomes in India, and we got Molly Shang, and we've got, there's all sorts of people that are out there trying to put a dent in this, that are writing books, that are speaking, but there was no gathering, there was no collaboration place for everybody other than that we just make it happen, on our own. So we really, I was shocked to realize that didn't exist, and that's why we launched Global Company Culture Association, because we want to get CEOs and leaders and speakers and authors and the people producing all of the data. You've got the Gallup and you've got Predictive Index, you've got O.C. Tanner. We want to get all of those people in the same proverbial room and have a bigger conversation, because I think that's how it's going to happen, is when we are really coordinating our efforts. And we're fortunate to live in a world where that's possible now, even doing what we're just doing. So, okay, I have to tell you, Dave, I watched some video of you in preparation for this. There are 3 things I told you that I want to steal from you, okay? Because I just thought they were brilliant. I'm joking, because I'm outing myself now if I said I'm going to steal them. But you asked a great question, which I'll try to remember to quote you on, but I thought was a great question, which is, do you have I think it was an ecosystem, or do you have an ego system?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
So you didn't even remember.
Yes. I know that.
I'm just saying it now. If you don't remember you said it, you've probably said so much great stuff you don't even know what you said.
No, I know that one, because that's critical, that one.
There's a big difference between the two, and I think that's fairly self-explanatory. But you asked a great question, which I really loved, which is, what's the difference between Iron Man and Terminator? So what's the difference between Iron Man and Terminator? You were talking about technology and AI.
It sounds like a bad joke. Yeah, to get started.
Iron Man and Terminator walk into a bar.
And only one walked out.
Yes, and we all know who that was. The yeah, so really, like, let's look here in Australia, for example. So 1 in 5 organizations are currently led by millennials, right? And so they're digital savvy, and so there's this really, whether you like technology or whatever it is, it's going to become a part of our lives if it hasn't already. But there's a lot of people who are fearful of it, like, technology is going to replace us and get rid of all our jobs, and we're losing all these jobs because of technology. And so what I always just challenge people on is, well, hang on, it depends on your perspective of technology. And I always use the Iron Man Terminator as the way to do it. Do you look at technology in your organization as Iron Man, or do you look at it as the Terminator? And what's the difference between Iron Man and the Terminator?
I know the answer to this. Do you
Okay,
know the answer
sorry.
to this, Elise? She knows the
I
answer.
can make one up.
Yeah, I'm sure you can.
No, okay.
Definitely
So the
make one.
answer, okay. Well, if you guys both know the answer, let's cut to the chase in terms of Iron Man is a human being powered by technology, and Terminator is technology to overpower human beings.
Yeah.
And so this
Big,
is what I
big
used
difference.
as a way to explain this to people. Yeah, massive difference. And it's not to say one's right or wrong in a sense, but it's what's your perspective on tech and how you'd like to leverage it in your organization. Now, I'm also a firm believer that if your employees or your team members are acting like robots, well, don't be surprised when they're replaced by them, right?
Yeah.
But what we want to do is to free up the human being, or empower or power the human being to be able to do more of their life's best work, right? This whole sense of leadership. So if we can remove all the stuff that actually, and some of it might even be what's contributing to the lack of meaning in their work, because we're doing this mundane, processes and stuff like that. So if we could remove that to free you up to do some more of the important work in our organization, and great work, which is spending more time with our customers and getting a deeper understanding of our, our clients and the people we want to serve, and how do we stay relevant in the hearts and minds of those people? Well, how could I give you your Iron Man suit to power you up so that you can go become even greater at what it is that you do?
I love that world. I love the world we live in. I think we are going through some very bumpy times, and I think it's going to get maybe a lot worse before it gets better. But I do think we emerge into a society where we have really leveled up in a number of ways, a much deeper, spiritual connection with each other and this place that we live. And we get to a place where we can focus on meaningful work, because who really wants to stand in a factory and just drill a hole in something, as it comes by every 10 seconds? We're evolving into a place where we can have machines do that, and we can get back to the business of being human. So by the way, number 3 was,
is the advent of tech. Sorry, good. Sorry,
No, go ahead, please.
has the advent of increased technology made us realize that there's more need for being humanistic in organizations, I wonder?
Yeah, I love it. And I think it is. We're starting to ask a lot more questions, and hopefully we'll be coming up with a lot more answers soon. So, Dave, oh, by the way, the third thing you said was you called
number 3.
You called Toys R Us Toys Were Us. I laughed so. Ouch! Too soon.
Poor Gordon
Dave.
the giraffe.
That's
too soon.
too
I
soon.
don't know if it's too
I
soon.
mentioned the French Revolution the other day to somebody, and they said too soon. I'm like, wow, when is too soon? Okay, so Dave, Clare, how do people find you? I know your book. Hold your book up. Let me get that wonderful pose.
Sure.
Let's get your book, and ta-da, Moneyball right there. So I know it's available on Amazon because I ordered a copy of it, and thank you for that. How do people get a hold of you if they want you to come speak? They want to hear more about what you're doing. I know you got a lot of videos out there. What's the best place to be in touch with you?
Just the best place to be in touch with me is just go straight to my website, which is very complicated. So please write this down: www.daveclare.com. That's DAVECLARE.com. That's the easiest way. I mean, obviously, I'm on all social medias.
Sorry, I forgot my
I know,
I have to repeat it.
You must have been an early jump on that, because I guess that there's probably not a lot of Dave Clares out there, but I own DarenMartin.com, but it's mainly because my parents spelled my first name oddly, Daren Martin. So there's a lot of double R Darens. I was able to grab that.
Yeah, you put the Daren, mate.
Got my maiden name.
That's right, absolutely. And thanks for throwing the mate in there. So, by the way, we can also be reached at the Global Company Culture Association.com. Come join the evolution at work. We want everybody. It's all hands on deck, and together, I really believe we can make a change. So, Dave, thanks a ton for getting up at 2 a.m. to be on the show, and we're excited about sharing you with this part of the world over here. I know they already know you over here, but we're gonna get even more exposure if we can. So, thanks for being on.
Thank you. Oh no, it's my absolute privilege to appreciate it. And like this is just to say, like this whole global company culture association concept was beyond a concept now. It is exactly what the world needs, and I'm so privileged to have found it, because for me, I'm wondering how the heck am I going to do this 90 million on my own, and now I know there's a whole association of people around the world that we can all contribute to that.
I love it. And by the way, Dave, we really do want it to be global. So I want to have some more conversations with you about what that looks like for Australia, and how we frame that up and who drives that and all of that. So wink, wink, I'm hoping to play a pretty big role in that. So check us out, globalcompanycultureassociation.com, and we would love to have you come be a member. There are multiple ways to join, and let us hear from you. Let's go drive an evolution at work.